Major support for Do the Math has been provided by Chevron, the Kern County Superintendent of Schools, Edison International, Dolly Strong Credit Union, California Resources Corporation, Panama Buena Vista Union School District, Bakersfield City School District, and Kern High School District, with additional production assistance provided by these supporters of education in Kern County and throughout the state of California.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to Do the Math. I'm Michael.
I'm Devin.
And in studio with us we have Matthew. Matthew, if somebody needed to contact us, what would they need to do?
For math homework help, call in Bakersfield 636-4357. Everywhere else, 1-866-636-6284. On email, dothemath@kern.org. We're online at dothemathonline.net and on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube.
All right, nicely done. So Matthew, what grade are you in and what school do you attend?
I'm in 5th grade at Panama.
So you're a yellow jacket.
Yes, I'm
And
a
how's
yellow
5th grade
jacket.
going?
Good.
Yeah? What's so good about it?
Well, we're learning about decimals.
Okay. So is math the only thing you're doing in 5th grade?
No.
I'm glad you brought up decimals because this is a math program. So is there anything else that you like about 5th grade right now that's going on?
I like ELA.
Okay. So any good stories you guys reading right now? Are you guys doing a chapter book at all? Or
No, we finished reading a book called 11, though.
okay. You like that one?
Yeah.
Oh, good. All right. So you're working on decimals, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything that you've been working on in class that's kind of giving you a little bit of a problem and you think you could use some more work with it?
Yeah.
What do you think that is?
Part of my math homework.
Okay. So some of the stuff that you brought in today, we're going to go over that.
Okay. Yeah.
You good with that?
Yeah.
All right. Good. Well, we're glad that you're here and we're going to help you out with some of that homework and get a lot of other stuff done as well. You good?
Yeah.
All right. You like peppers?
No, not really.
All right. Well, you know,
Oh,
well,
good.
let's
More
find
for
out.
us. That's fine. That's
we're
fine.
gonna,
Not a problem there.
Check out today's Math in the News. All right, well, today's Math in the News, we have a rather extraordinary guest on show with us today. We have Dr. Stephanie Walker. How are you today, Dr. Walker?
Hi, I'm just fine. Thank you. Great to be here.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking out time. And I know that we have had a professor of chemistry from Cal State in the studio before talking about capsaicin levels in peppers, trying to figure out where the highest concentration of capsaicin is, whether it was in the stem or the seeds or some part of the flesh and things like that. What exactly are you looking at in the peppers that you're dealing with?
Yes, I'm talking about mechanical harvest of peppers. So currently, virtually all our acreage of New Mexico type green chili is hand harvested. And that's made it really tough for growers because they just can't get enough people out in the field to pick the chili when it's ready to be picked.
And we're seeing some of those peppers on monitor right now. And in New Mexico, I was fortunate enough to go over and visit last year. And every single restaurant that we went to, they said, would you like green or red or Christmas? So can you explain that to people that have never had the opportunity to go through that, first of all?
Sure, so absolutely. So with most of the New Mexico type chili peppers, they start out green, and once they're fully sized, before they turn over to a colored physiological mature stage, we pick them at that stage, and that's a green crop. Once they turn red, then we usually let them dry down somewhat and pick them red. And it does impact the flavor. The red chili tends to have a more complex flavor. It's sweeter. A lot of people like that fresh green flavor better. Other people like that more complex red flavor better. So that's why you're asked. Do you prefer to have green or red?
Okay.
And here in New Mexico, if you like both or want to try both, you ask for Christmas.
Gotcha. Because that threw me off just for a second when I went there the first time for the first restaurant. But I know that you've been working on this for a while. How long have you been working on trials for this harvesting machine?
Yeah, so I've worked with the engineers on the equipment. I've done more of the breeding side, developing a plant machine. And we actually started our work on a New Mexico type green chili, evaluating machines and different varieties of green chili about 12 years ago. So it's been quite a long haul getting to the point we're able to come up with a system that works for mechanical harvest of green chili.
So we see the double helix machine going right there, and then you're taking the stem off of that. What makes this pepper, is it that the stem is easily removed that makes this pepper so unique?
Well, that's part of it. When you grow green chili for processors, if it's going to go into a salsa, you need to get that stem off. Otherwise, it creates this woody material in your product. And so all green chili that goes into processing plants has the stem removed first. So currently, when the green chili fruit are hand harvested out in the field, the people will pop that stem off at the same time they pick the fruit. And then the destemmed fruit will go in for processing. And that way, this extraneous woody material doesn't end up in your salsa where you'll bite it and have that unpleasant feeling in your mouth.
Okay. And
So yeah, and that's just part of it. We really need to, we've worked on getting those green fruit off of the plants more efficiently for the mechanical harvest as well.
right, so this is to basically more efficiently harvest the peppers. Instead of having people go out at different times of the season, you can pinpoint exactly when these peppers are ready, have the robotic machinery go out, the helix machine, and take care of this for more efficiency, basically.
Yeah, or really it's a purely mechanical type picking mechanism. I am also working with some folks on robotic picking, but these double helixes will just come through. They're like solid springs. They go on either side of the chili plants and just pop those fruit right off the plant. But the thing with green chili plants is with some varieties, the fruit will pop off very easily, like NewMex Odyssey that we just released. With other varieties, those fruit don't pop off and they tend to break and shred and really create a mess instead of a good, cleanly harvested crop.
Okay, so the NewMex Odyssey is this pepper, and you guys have got this thing going. Are these peppers able to be planted in other parts around you, or are you just gathering seeds so that we can start putting these out to other places?
Yeah, so a local chili growing family out of the Hatch Valley, very famous growing area for New Mexico green chili, has purchased the rights to increase the seed. So this year was the first year that they're doing a large scale seed increase. So beginning next year, people who are interested in planting NewMex Odyssey can purchase seed from this farming family. Yeah, for this year, it's kind of smaller scale. We're just trying to increase the seeds. They'll be available for more farms next year.
So the NewMex Odyssey, and you obviously work with New Mexico State University. Are there others involved with your university as well on this project?
Oh my goodness, yes. We have so many people that have been involved in this project. I've had a really long-term collaboration with the USDA agricultural engineers who are affiliated but not exactly part of New Mexico State University. We've had harvest trials where we tried different breeding lines as well as different varieties of chili for many, many years, and we have all of these USDA personnel out with us. I've had a long series of graduate students and undergraduate students that have helped me collect data on these plots. And so this has been a team effort. We've probably had 50 people involved in actual development and testing of towards the development of NewMex Odyssey.
Well, with all of those people involved, I'm sure you're glad to see it finally come to fruition with the pepper here. where this finally come about. Our student guest is a 5th grade student, Dr. Walker, and Matthew has a question for you.
Why are peppers different colors?
Okay, well, sure. So mostly, of course, we think of green chili turning to a red color, but actually, chili peppers have many different pigments in them, and depending on the variety of chili, it's actually going to produce different types of pigments. And if you see like a purplish, purple bell pepper, purple pepper, that's because it's creating anthocyanin, very healthful pigment for people to eat. If it's very yellow, that may be many of the carotenoid pigments. We have orange pigments, and of course, green is the chlorophyll that shows up in a green pepper before it ripens to its final stage when the seeds will be viable inside those fruit. So it's really these very healthful pigments that impart the different colors and different types of chili peppers.
So, Dr. Walker, do you have a preference on the green or red?
You're on the spot.
I'm a solidly Christmas person.
I feel like you can't be solid, Chris. That's like by definition not solid one way or the other.
So I know that on one of your other interviews, you were seen sampling one of the peppers. And I don't know, I mean, you can see us right now, right, with our pepper. And we're going to see if these California peppers. All right, you want to try and take that stem off of there?
Yeah, not quite as easy to pop through there, huh? Okay, no,
Okay,
you
so
got it. You got it.
Nailed it.
Came off, but with some effort.
Right. And so that's a problem. You know, if the stems, it's called the pedicel. So the stem and the calyx is the pedicel of the fruit. And if it doesn't come off really easily, it's a problem because the processors are going to get a lot of this woody material in their products otherwise. So that was one thing we really looked at when developing NewMex Odyssey. We wanted to make sure that that pedicel or stem comes off cleanly and with minimal force.
So is there an opportunity where people would want the pedestal in the processing?
Yeah, so absolutely. If it's whole green fruit that are being frozen to make rellenos, you know, typically a chili relleno is going to have that stem on it. So this is really mainly for chili that's diced and goes into sauces and salsas where you need to get that stem off. But if you're working with a whole chili, then having that stem on is great.
All right, well, Dr. Walker, we certainly do appreciate you taking out some time today. And I know that you're dealing with this NewMex Odyssey, but I've got one final question for you. So the two peppers that I've got here, obviously one is a little bit larger, green, the other one is smaller and red. With your expertise, which one will be hotter?
So, you know, a lot of people claim that they can tell how hot a pepper is by looking at it, but I always assure them that chili pepper breeders have mixed up the genetics so much that you can't really tell by looking at the outside of the pepper.
Okay.
The best way to tell, if you cut it open, the hottest part of the chili pepper where the capsaicins are being produced is on the veins or the placenta. So if you see a pronounced yellow vein inside those peppers, that usually indicates a very, very hot pepper. But yeah, by size, the genetics are too mixed up now.
Right.
Humans have been working with the genetics of peppers for a very, very long time.
And the veins, I'm glad you brought that up, the placenta part, because when we were discussing this with the other professor, and he was looking for where the capsaicin was concentrated most, it was in that part of the particular peppers that he was looking at. The small red one I've grown at my house, along with some of these other varieties that we have, and I know that's hot. So I'm not going to put that in my mouth right now on live TV. But you think I should try one of these that John brought in?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to try one of these and see how it goes.
That was a full bite. Okay. All right.
Tasty indeed, tasty indeed. It could use a little more spice, and maybe it'll hit me in a little bit. But right now, I want to say that that's rather tasty, and I'll probably consume the whole thing during the rest of the program. Dr. Stephanie Walker, thank you for taking time to visit with us today and helping us out do the math. And what we're going to do is send to you, through the mail, a plaque designed for all of our guests who help us out on doing the math. So, Dr. Walker, once again, thank you very much for helping us out, and a pleasure meeting you.
Pleasure. The pleasure is all mine. Thank you very much and good night.
All right, thank you very much. And once again, thanks to John Lenko, our coordinator here at KETN, for setting that up, finding out all about the peppers in New Mexico and New Mexico State University. That is today's Math in the News. 636-4357 is the phone number. We do have phone tutors available most Tuesdays and Wednesdays throughout the regular school year. If you phone in today and we do one of your math problems on air, you will automatically receive a pass to Autumn Nights, happening now at COM, and that is happening this final week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And so you have one last opportunity to get a free pass to go check that out. In studio, we have Mathew, a 5th grade student from Panama Elementary, working on some multiplying of fractions. So let's take a look at one of the problems right now. Model and solve the problem. We have 2/5 times 3/4. So boys, head on over to the board. 2/5 times 3/4. So we need to model it and then solve it.
Now, when we have to model it, we have to really think about what this might look like visually before we start to consider what a solution might look like. So, you know, when we've multiplied things before, Mathew, and we've had to model them, we use kind of an area model, right?
Yeah.
We use, you know, one of the factors across, and then we'll use another one of the factors down this way. Now, when we're multiplying with fractions, we can still use an area model, but it's going to look a little different, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how would you set up the model for 2/5 times 3/4? I'm just going to write it down here so that we don't forget it. So how would you use a model to show what this would equal?
So maybe you would have to make 5.
So that's really interesting. What you're doing is you're going to make some circles that you're going to break up. Is that accurate? Or what were you going to make 5 of here?
I'm going to make 5 lines to separate it.
Oh, I see. So we're going to take this rectangle and we're going to break it up into fifths, is what I'm hearing. Is that correct? All right,
Yeah.
so let's do that here. I'll go ahead and split this up for you. Let's do 1. I'll go ahead and erase this line here. We'll leave that shape there. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we have this rectangle broken up horizontally into fifths, okay? What about vertically? How many portions are we going to break this up in vertically?
4.
4. Okay, go ahead and take care of that then. Let's do that. All right. So we have our rectangle split into fifths and into fourths. Now before we go any further, how many smaller rectangles have we created by doing all of these splits here?
4 times 5, 20.
That's wonderful how you were able to see this array laid out as 4 groups of 5 or 5 groups of 4. So yeah, we have 20 segments of this rectangle. Now, we said that we split this up into fifths going across. And I'm going to change things up a little bit here. I'm going to move over from a pen to a highlighter. I'm going to play around with some color here. Broken up into fifths. How many fifths were in our original problem here?
2.
Could you do me a favor then? Could you go ahead and shade in 2/5 of this rectangle highlighted yellow?
Yeah.
Great. So all the way with that part, that's 1/5. And then the second part is 2/5. Wonderful. Now, let's look horizontally. We're going to change the color up a little bit, all right? We used orange for our 2/5 part. Let's go ahead and use blue for our 3/4. Would you be able to highlight 3/4 of this rectangle horizontally?
Yes.
Go for it. There we go. Very efficient, using 2 fingers to color over these, cover a wider area there. I'm going to do that too. wonderful technique. Now, what's really interesting here, of course, using the color helps us visualize this, because when we know that in highlighters that blue and yellow overlap, we're blending blue and yellow, it makes green. So let me ask you this. Out of the 20 portions here that we split this original rectangle into, how many of these portions, and I'm going to go ahead and just kind of get rid of this part here, but out of those 20 portions, because I think this was a little bit of an accident, let me just get that out of the way. How many of them are highlighted green, where there's an overlap of the blue from 3/4 and the yellow from 2/5?
6.
6. So 6 out of 20 of this whole rectangle is covered with the overlap here. So what this essentially means is 2/5 times 3/4 is equivalent to 6/20. Now, if we just need our value, we've got it right there, right? Sometimes it's helpful to simplify a fraction to represent it in simplest form. Other times it might be helpful to scale up to something like 100th so we could represent it in decimal format. So let's try to do both here, okay?
Okay.
Would you like to simplify this or convert it to a decimal
I
first?
can simplify it first.
Go for it.
So 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 20 divided by 2 is 10. So that would be 3/10.
And so you use that common factor of 2 between the numerator and the denominator to simplify this. And this actually gets us to a very friendly fraction if we were to convert this to a decimal, right?
Yeah.
So if we were to convert 3/10 to a decimal, what would that be?
3/10.
It says it, right? I love fractions with a power of 10 denominator because they tell you what they are. So 2/5 times 3/4 equals 6/20, which is equivalent to 3/10. Matthew, nice job to kick things off here today.
There you go. Great problem. Great use of using those multicolors and finding out the commonality right there. So, Matthew, for some great work today, you've got yourself a meal courtesy of our friends at Chick-fil-A. So, congratulations on that.
Yeah.
And hopefully you have an opportunity to go to Chick-fil-A and check those out. Now, Via Arte was happening this last weekend, and we'll take a look at the postcard that was here. It was explaining to everybody that was happening on the 22nd and 23rd, and that happened at the Marketplace this last weekend. And the Bakersfield Museum of Art is kind enough to come in and visit with Do the Math every month and do some math and art lessons with the students. And right now we're going to take a look at some of the winning entries. So here we can see best technique. We have best use of color. That actually looks like something that might show up in New Mexico, actually, right there. Best in festival. And John, you said that kind of car was a?
Super B.
Super B.
Super B.
All right.
Dodge.
Best rendition of a master. And these are just remarkable. And to think that these are done on the blacktop in chalk is just mind-blowing to me. I mean, I'm sure there's obviously a lot of people that can go out and do this, but it's just amazing to me the talent and the skill that they've got. Schools and groups, best use of color, best technique. This I've actually got a print, not this one because this is, but of a Picasso right here in our classroom. Best rendition of a master. Best overall, schools and groups. And then finally, we've got an honorable mention. And then this one, the People's Choice.
Remarkable.
This one, I just take a look at the detail that is on that, the grand prize, and this person actually brought home cash for the best overall People's Choice for the 2022 Via Arte Festival out at the Marketplace. And once again, thank you to the Bakersfield Museum of Art for sponsoring that, holding that competition, and coming in and also working with the students on how to do the scale for those types of drawings. 636-4357 is the phone number. We do have phone tutors available until 5:30 most Tuesdays and Wednesdays. This, awfully exciting because we're doing a lot of features on robots this year, and even with that double helix machine that Dr. Walker was talking about with the picking the peppers. And I forgot to ask her if she had ever picked a peck of peppers. But But I'm sure she has many in her day. But anyway, that is today's little feature. We're going to check out the DaVinci Robot.
Hi, I'm Cassie. I'm the Director of Surgical Services here at Mercy. I pretty much get all of our employees up and trained on this robot. They have to go through extensive training as far as online modules. They do hands-on training. They do get proctoring. We have many people in the role during the procedure. We have RNFAs. They assist surgeons during the surgery, and they go through very extensive training for that. We also have surgical techs. They are the ones that are setting up the robot, making sure that correct instruments for the correct procedure are on the table. And then we also have the RN circulator that is running around and making sure they come and dock the robot, turn on the machine, they make sure that the robot's going to the correct body part. I have here with me Nick. He's the Senior Clinical Coordinator Sales Representative of Intuitive.
Like Cassie said, my name's Nick, and I work with Intuitive, a maker of the DaVinci Surgical Robot. This is our DaVinci Xi, which is actually our 4th generation system. And really my role here is to partner with the hospital to make sure that all the staff and surgeons are properly trained, just to make sure that the program that they've established is working well. So anything I can do, from case support to staff training, to just market awareness, is something that I focus all my time and effort on.
Nick, do you think you can explain to us a little bit more in detail how the robot actually works?
Right, so really the whole goal here is that, as you can see, there's 4 arms coming off the robot. This is the actual robot that will ultimately connect and dock to the patient. It gives the surgeon full autonomy and turns a 2-handed surgeon into a 4-handed surgeon. Also, what you'll see later is that the endoscope that which they view from gives them a 3-dimensional image. So as traditionally a surgeon may lose the depth perception when they're doing minimally invasive surgery, but now they actually get that 3D dimension in there. And then they also have articulating instruments that actually move, actually have more freedom than their actual hand. So by putting this tiny 8mm instrument into the body, the surgeon now has complete movement of what that instrument is doing, down to a very finite movement and control. And you'll get to see that, what that looks like in action a little bit later.
The time of recovery is a lot better with these instruments too. We're not making a big incision. We're going through just a little tiny port. It's a very new technology that I think we're going to transfer over to. We're going to see it only in the future.
This is a very advanced, very technical machine, but it does need a setup first. And Nick here is going to start the process of doing that.
So one of the first things that will happen when we're ready to start a DaVinci procedure is the nurse will come back here behind the robot, and we need to select a few things here on this touchpad. One of the first things we want to select is the type of anatomy that we're going to be working on. Everything from thoracic up in the chest or down in the pelvis. Here we're going to mimic that we're doing a lower abdominal procedure, and then we select which orientation we're actually coming in relationship to the patient. We're coming in from the patient's left, and once we've selected that, we will go ahead and deploy for docking. The robot will put itself in a sort of neutral position, which will allow the arms to be ready to actually drive in and connect to the patient. Normally, we would sterilely drape each robotic arm, since it is working on a patient and going into a sterile field. We have a little bit of a different system that we use when we're doing bedside training like this. And so that's all I'm doing now, is putting little connectors and adapters that will allow the instruments to connect.
So the robot is smart enough to recognize this particular attachments. You will not be able to use this arm for the surgical procedure if the input that the robotic arm is receiving is not 100% correct every time.
I will continue, the nurse comes back and we'll continue on the touchpad and actually select a button to dock the robot. The arms will extend out.
Drive the laser lines to the endoscope ports.
And then now, at the guidance of the surgeon, we will drive the robot in and over the patient.
The whole robotic arms will move as a whole to go to that exact location. Even if the initial placement of the instruments is not where I want it to be, we can actually manually adjust the exact location we want it to be. As you can see here, the laser is exactly on my finger. This is an actual operating room table. The patient will be staying flat in this position. The anesthesiologist will be monitoring the patient's vitals and breathing on the top. The patient's feet will be toward the bottom. The patient is already asleep. The first thing that we'll be doing on this with these procedures will be placement of something called surgical trocars, or robotic trocars. And this is what that looks like. As you can see, they're made out of metal, and it has several markings on it. There's a disposable cap on top that allows for air to be maintained inside of the abdomen, something called pneumoperitoneum, or intra-abdominal air pressure. Because if this is open, all the air that goes in will come right out. So this has a one-way valve right here. You can see the plastic. Now what these markings do, they have very actually important function. As you can see, there's two black lines which are thin, and there's a dark black line which is thick. This is the pivot point. What that means is that the robot will know exactly where this black, dark, thick line is in three-dimensional space. And every time the arms move, this point will remain static. All right, so
dock it up?
yeah, let's go ahead and dock this. So I'll show you the actual docking process. There's a button behind this instrument here, and there's another level which releases the clamp here. So during the procedure, both of those are pressed at the same time, and the trocar is plugged in inside. You can hear the sound, confirming that the robot recognized the trocar and it's secured where it needs to be secured. Now remember I told you guys about the pivot point here, the dark spot? Now look what happens if I'm moving the instrument on the... I can move this in 360 degrees basically, and that black dot does not move in space. The area of the patient's abdomen, which is where the muscles and the fascia are located, does not tear apart, does not move, because the robot is able to keep that pivot point exactly the same location I set it up in the beginning of the case. And we'll complete the placement. This is the console. This is what the surgeon will be using to control all four arms of the robot. It has a lot of ergonomic setups, including a support for the elbows, multiple buttons for the feet. This button, for example, controls the camera, that controls the arms. Those blue and yellow buttons provide energy to the instrument to provide things like cauterization, firing of the staple, etc. And the most important part of this whole console is really this. This is really the star of the show. As you can see, this loops here allow me to place my fingers inside and get control of the instruments of the robot. These loops can be clicked like that. So I can provide things like closing the scissors, for example, closing the graspers. He also has a button here which has a separate function as well, and the same thing on this side as well. Now these arms, when I'm using them, I'm basically doing this particular movement. And this movement that I'm doing now is what's controlling or what's really performing the surgery inside of the abdomen. The robotic arms and the robotic instruments do not do anything unless I'm doing it or I'm controlling it here. The robotic camera has two actual cameras in it. So there's two eyepieces where I place my head really here. And each eyepiece gets an image from a separate camera, which means that when I'm putting those things together, I'm getting a stereoscopic three-dimensional view. So let's start with the surgery. So as you can see here, I can grab the needle in all kinds of different angles and different rotations. I can use my other arms to perform the same thing. And I can do something like this, for example, go through a piece of tissue in order to perform a suturing of that area. Robotic instruments provide very fine control, which means that just by looking at the tissue, I can tell how much pressure I'm applying. I can tell how much of a movement I need to do to obtain the type of result I want to obtain. As you can see here, very fine movement on my hands allow the robotic instruments to translate my movements inside of the patient's abdomen to perform the steps that I need to perform during the surgery. And here I wanted to also mention the fact that because I have 3 arms inside of the belly, I can perform steps that otherwise I wouldn't be able to perform by myself during the surgery. For example, you can see a rubber band loop over here. I can stretch the rubber band like this, right? I could do that with my own hands or instruments easily. What I could not do is hold the rubber band under tension, then grab a separate instrument and do this. This, I would need an assistant to be able to do this. And you'd need somebody else to also, hold on to the camera, for example, if this was being done in a laparoscopic fashion. But the robotic platform allows us to perform steps and maneuvers that would really not be possible with other instruments or other technologies.
There we go, our latest robots at work. Once again, thanks to Dr. Malalari and all of his staff and everybody that contributed to that great piece over at Mercy Southwest. Thank you once again for that. In studio, we have Mathew, a 5th grade student from Panama Elementary, and been working with decimals in class, and you're digging kind of that, huh?
Matthew's
You want more decimals?
He's in the groove here.
All right, get on over to the board, young man. Here we go.
All right, let's take a look at this problem here from that sheet that we brought in. It's another model and solve here. But this time, a couple of things are flipped on us. The last problem was multiplying fractions, and now here we're dividing with decimals. Now, we had a conversation about how you would say this. So first of all, just so we can lay this out, because I think sometimes there's always, whenever we have a division bracket, there's this sense that we have to do long division. And we're not going to solve this with any long division here. How would we rewrite this problem so we know what kind of division we're doing here? So how would we rewrite this in division in another form, let's say with the division symbol?
We would write 0.6 divided by 0 and 1500ths.
That was really interesting how you express this as 1500ths. Now, over here, we mentioned this, you represented this as 0.6, but you said something very interesting as far as an equivalent. So how would you say this decimal as it is here?
Oh, 0 and 6/10.
6/10. But during the break, we started talking a little bit about this problem, and you mentioned something about how else you could see this value.
Oh, 6/10 is equivalent to 60/100.
60/100ths. Okay, I'm going to come back to that in a little bit. But first, let's talk a little bit about what it means to divide 6/10 by 1500ths. What I'd like you to do is think about this grid as one whole, right? Now, each of these squares, what do you think each of these squares represents?
Maybe 1,000 or 100.
Yeah, probably one. Well, there's 100
Oh, yeah,
squares here,
100
so each of these squares would represent 1/100th, or written in decimal form. Now, what about each of these columns then?
Each column is a tenth.
Right, so each of these columns represents 1/10, or 0.1, or we could say that as 1/10 as a fraction. So what I'd like to do, to make sure that we're illustrating what we're starting off here with the 6/10, let's go back to our highlighters here. I'm going to change this up a little bit. Let's go to a highlighter. Let's go with purple this time. Could you fill in 6/10 of this grid with our purple highlighter tool? Go right ahead. And you can just use, you use your finger or you can use the stylus. Go for it.
6.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to, let's try using, for the sake of color, let's just use our finger here. So let's go back to our highlighter and we'll make it purple. Go for it. There we go. All right. So because we connected that each of these was 1/10, in order to get 6/10, we only need to highlight 6 of these columns. Okay. Now, we have 6/10, but you also said that's equivalent. So how many hundredths did we color in here?
We colored in 600ths. Oh, 60 hundredths?
60 hundredths, absolutely. Now, we have 60 hundredths. When we divide by 15 hundredths, what we're really going to be doing is finding out how many groups of 15 hundredths we can make out of the 60 hundredths. So here's what I'd like us to try. Using this stylus, could you circle groups of 15 hundredths?
Yes.
Go for it.
So we're gonna have to shade in one of these and then 5 mark, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. So that one group that you have kind of circled off is 15 hundredths.
Yes.
Okay. Keep doing that. Let's see how many more groups of 15 hundredths we can make. All right. There's another one. All right, we have a third one there.
Yeah, we have that.
Great. So you're taking a look at these groups of 5 as another group of 15.
Yeah.
Good visual on that. So overall, how many groups of 15 hundredths were we able to make out of 6/10?
4.
4, right? 1, 2, 3, and then this group over here, that's 4.
Yeah.
So 6/10 divided by 15 hundredths.
Is equal to 4/10.
Well, it's not even
4
4/10. We have 4 whole groups that we created,
Oh,
right?
4 whole.
Yeah.
Oh.
We got 4 groups of 15 hundredths that we were able to carve out of our 6/10, which you identified is equivalent to 60 hundredths.
So
In a
wouldn't
way,
that be 4 holes?
it is 4 whole, absolutely. In fact, another way that you can think about this, because of the way that place value work with decimals, I mean, if you were asked to do 60 divided by 15,
It would be 4.
it'd be 4.
The same.
So there's an association, and that's something very important to keep in mind as you start looking at the division of decimals with fractions. If you see that you have an opportunity to work with a simpler version of the same problem, it'll get you to the same spot just the same. But considering as well what a problem like this really represents as far as how it's connected with division. Good vision on that, Matthew. Nicely
Can I
done.
add something?
Oh, yeah, please, go right for it.
So this, if you move the decimal 2 times, that's divided by 100. And then if you move it once here again, that's 1,000. So if you move it 3 times again, that's why it makes 4 holes.
Well, something to keep in mind as well. When we move decimals to the right, what we're essentially doing every time we do that is we multiply the original value by 10. So 1/10 times 10 is 1.
And times 10
And another 10.
times 100.
So this is, yeah, 15 hundredths times 100 is equivalent to 15. So anytime we work with division in decimals, we need to make sure that we're shifting the decimal the same amount on each side, because we want to make sure that we maintain balance and equivalence with what we're multiplying by, so that it doesn't throw off any of those calculations. But that's a wonderful observation there as far as what that decimal shift means and how it relates to the original problem, how we model that, and where it got us in the end.
Nicely done, Matthew, and I'm glad you brought up the point of moving that decimal point, because a lot of students will be familiar with that, and that you were able to see that is even better, that you were able to see that and move that decimal. The key, though, as Devin reminded you, if you move it twice on the outside, you need to move it twice on the inside as well. All right. Have you ever wondered what it's like to own a small business?
Nope.
Well, we're going to find out right now from our friends at CTech.
Anybody here needs to worry about that? At RSC, there are many programs that help students get ahead in life. For students like Yanet, these classes help improve their education for their future.
I chose this class because I already had a small business when I was in the RSC website, and I wanted to be able to expand my business and learn way more about building a small business.
$3 a month or $7.55 a year. And then you should probably say, I've been teaching this program for the last 5 years. It's been a fabulous opportunity to teach people how to start their own small businesses. And really, entrepreneurship is so hot and popular right now that this is really trending throughout colleges and high schools throughout the nation. And I'm excited to be able to bring it to current high school students.
I want to do something with beauty, possibly like soaps, maybe like body washes, body butters, body scrubs type of thing.
In this program, students are able to learn the skills of how to start a business and even grow their business in school.
I've learned a lot about marketing and getting my brand more out there and my business more out there. And I learned my strengths and weaknesses too, which helped me so much as well.
I started selling some products that my mom makes, and I've been able to learn a lot with the experiences from that along with this class.
So I own my own business, and it's one of the joys of my life is being able to own my business, have my name on the building, and to be able to share that with my students. And many of them want to have their own business, and to be able to provide them the opportunity to have a foundation to build upon definitely is what attracted me to teaching this program. They'll say you want business, property, insurance.
A lot. It's helped me a lot setting the foundation of it and learning about the plan, how much it's gonna cost to start it up, your exit strategy, a lot of different things when it comes to business, and even taking the business class, the BC courses that we're taking right now because we get college credits. So doing that is beneficial as well, and it's gonna help us start up our business.
I own Russo's Books, and we have for the past 30 years. My father and I are the principals there. And as I say, it's just one of the joys of my life, being able to take care of my customers and to provide for them, and to know that I make the decisions, and right or wrong, I have to own those decisions. And that's what I try to teach my students also. You're in charge, and you need to make those decisions and be willing to live or die by them. Business plan. The second one, we need to start Project 5, and we'll do that in just a moment.
A typical day in the class, just doing paperwork and working on feasibility studies, business plans, and looking over our individual businesses to see how we can plan it out and grow our business that are soon to start up.
Processes. This way you will answer readers' questions about operations. We have 5 different precision skills exams that students can be certified in, including economics, because we do give college prep econ credit, and entrepreneurship, as well as a few other business certifications. And then we also, second semester, offer Bakersfield College credit as well.
Thanks to all the staff and students at ROC and CTEC, and those are 100% produced by the students at CTEC. And kind of threw me off a second because Mike Russo, a good friend of ours, was surprised to see that he was in that part right there, so nicely done there, Mike. And Russo's Books, still here in Bakersfield, a little smaller, but a local bookstore that we have right here in Bakersfield. How are you, Matthew?
Good.
You ready to do some more math?
Yes.
Did you know that last week was Math Week in Kern County?
No.
You didn't know that?
No.
We had some people from the Mind Research Institute on the previous 2 weeks to talk about that. And what they wanted to do was have Math Week, the families in Kern County get to 500,000 minutes of math activities in the house, and they came very, very close, 493,000 minutes. That's a lot of minutes, isn't it? 493,000 minutes in a week for families to be doing math at their house, doing activities with the entire family. Sound like a good idea?
Yeah.
Well, maybe you and your family can do some more tonight.
Okay.
But we're going to have you do some more right now. You ready?
Yeah.
Head on over to the board, young man.
Let's go.
So this is one that you have coming up on one of your homework assignments. It says, add parentheses to make true. So, Devin, if you want to write this down, we have 3 times 18 divided by 6 plus 5 equals 14.
So we will add a set of parentheses to make this statement true. Sometimes looking at the instruction is one element, but also looking back to see what it doesn't say can be helpful to keep in mind. So what are your initial thoughts as far as how you would add a parentheses set to get to 14 here?
I'm not quite sure, but maybe I would do it between the 3 and the 18.
Let's round around the 3 and the 18 and see what that does. I think with a problem like this, there is certainly an element of guess and check that can be very helpful. So let's start us off. 3 times 18 would come first as grouping symbols, right? Okay.
So 18 times 3. So 3 times 8 is 24, and then you gotta add the 2, and then 3 times 1 is 3 plus 2 is 5.
All right, so we're going to
54.
say 54. So we have
54.
54 divided by 6 plus 5. All right, what would we do next here?
54 and the 6?
Because we have that division symbol next. Right, after we do grouping symbols and then exponents, we do whatever comes next with multiplication or division. So 54 divided by 6.
54 divided by 6.
Now, this is maybe not a long division type problem. This might be more of a fact situation, right? What can we divide 54? How many times can we get 6's into 54?
Well, let's see.
Let's see.
6 cannot go into 5, so it can go into 54. 6 times 9 is 54, so you would write a 9.
And you know, it's funny how you approach that, where you end up just doing 54 divided by 6 anyway. I like to think of this as 60 divided by 6, but you take away 1/6. So I know that 60 divided by 6 is 10. If I take 1/6 away from 60, I'm at 54 to get to my 9. So we have 9 plus 5. Does that equal 14?
Yeah.
I think we've already found our set of parentheses here.
Good. Do me a favor, do not erase the entire board. Erase only the parts that are in black down below the 18 times 3 and 64 or 54 divided by 6.
All right. Let's get rid of those.
Okay, draw a line across the entire board right underneath where you just did that problem.
So all the way here, we're going to create a nice little separator.
And rewrite the problem, 3 times 18
Here we go.
divided by 6 plus 5 equals 14. Now, Matthew, do it a different way, but don't put parentheses around 3 times 18 to start.
Okay. So then I would just put it around the 18 and the 6.
Okay, so let's start things off here. 18 divided by 6.
18 divided by 6.
Or you could think of this as 6 times what would equal 18?
6
Right?
times 3.
Let's go with 3. Okay. So we have 3 times 3 plus 5.
3 times 3, 9 plus 5, still 14.
It's 14 again. We just moved the parentheses over here, and it worked with this center spot, just as it did with 3 times 18. So we got 2 very quick solutions there.
So maybe erase what you did underneath with the division and rewrite the problem as 3 times 3 plus 5.
All right, so we had 3 times 3 plus 5 here, okay?
And that, whoa, don't erase it all.
We're going to keep that part. That's a good part. That's good work.
And then just put equals 14 at the end. Draw a line across the entire thing.
Okay, cross that out.
No, underneath the whole problem like you
Under
did
the three
before.
part. Here we go. All right.
Rewrite the problem one more time.
It's going to make you do another one, right? I think we know where this is going. All right. 3 times 18 divided by 6 plus 5 equals 14.
All
One
right,
more
so
time.
Matthew, you solved that 2 different ways by putting parentheses around different things. Is there another way that you could do it still?
Well, I'll see if I can do 6 plus 5. 6 plus 5 is 11.
Okay.
And then times...
Well, we know that we're now working from left to right here, right? We have 3 times 18 divided by 11. Well, we can do 3 times 18 pretty quickly compared to before, right?
Yeah.
We already did that one.
Because 3 times 18 is... I forgot.
Don't look too far.
54?
We already did that work. So yeah, let's go ahead and put 54 down. Now here's where we end up. 54
divided by 11.
Now I'm not going to put you on the spot to find out what 54 divided by 11 is. But what I'm going to ask you is, do you know whether or not it is equivalent to 14?
No.
How do we know it can't be?
Because 11 times nothing equals 54.
Yeah, there's no, well, there's no like whole integer number that we can find. No, because we know that 11 times 5 is 55. And we know that 11 times 4 is 44. But nothing that we see here with 11 is going to multiply us to get there. So we can't do 54 divided by. So we know it can't be 14. So it can't be these parentheses, which is okay.
So just erase everything in black.
All right.
Down there.
Get very precise with this marker. All right. Let's rewrite that 5.
So once you erase everything in black, we now have the original problem up there. Matthew, do you see any other way you can solve this? Because parentheses there did not work.
Now, if you remember what we said, look for what it doesn't say. So it says add parentheses to make true. If you notice, they didn't say that the parentheses only had to have 2 values inside of them.
So here's something that I think Devin is trying to get to with you. Do you think it's possible to use no parentheses? He may think put the whole thing in parentheses, but do you think you can do that without parentheses?
I'm not sure you can.
You're not sure? Well, you know what? I'm going to give you guys 30 seconds. Go.
And again, we did most of this work already. Ready? Here we go. 3 times, so if we do this just without parentheses.
54
divided by 6 plus 5, and we already did 54 divided by 6, right?
Yeah.
So 54 divided by 6 is 9, and then we did 9 plus 5?
14.
So that's interesting. And I wonder if, because we essentially did this in sequence based on the order of operations, another way that we might utilize
There you go.
the parentheses.
So you did find the way without parentheses.
Yeah.
So you can tell your teacher, I can find it with parentheses and without parentheses. Nicely done, Matthew.
One of those two, right?
All right. Hey, we do have phone tutors available until 5:30 Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Until we meet again, continue to do the math.
Major support for Do the Math has been provided by Chevron, the Kern County Superintendent of Schools, Edison International, Valley Strong Credit Union, California Resources Corporation, Panama Buena Vista Union School District, Bakersfield City School District, and Kern High School District, with additional production assistance provided by these supporters of education in Kern County and throughout the state of California.